Imagine finding an old Washington quarter buried beneath a pile of dusty change, a coin that looks completely ordinary, worn down, scratched, and almost worthless. You might toss it into a jar without giving it a second thought. But what if that beat-up little quarter has a story that collectors have been chasing for decades? What if the right mint mark, the right error, the right condition, or a rare variety could turn a forgotten piece of pocket change into serious money? Today, we're going straight into 4 Washington quarters that deserve a much closer look. And I want you to stay with me until the very end, because these aren't just coins that look old. We're talking about coins that can become dramatically more valuable when rarity, condition, minting characteristics, and collector demand all come together. Some may look like they were dragged through mud for 60, 70, or even 80 years. Some may look like trash sitting at the bottom of a dusty change pile. But hidden inside that ugly, forgotten, beat-up appearance could be something collectors are willing to pay serious money for. I'm showing you exactly what to look for, because the next valuable Washington quarter might already be hiding in your pocket change. The first coin we're looking at today is the 1970 Washington quarter, and I need you to stop before you dismiss this one as just another old quarter. At first glance, it can look ordinary, worn, dirty, scratched, and completely forgotten. But this is exactly where many collectors make a mistake. They see an old quarter and assume it is only worth its face value. The truth is, the 1970 Washington quarter can become much more interesting when you start checking the details. This is a coin from an important period in American coinage, and the combination of its age, minting characteristics, condition, and possible varieties can make certain examples stand apart from millions of ordinary pieces. So before you throw one into a dusty change pile or spend at a store, take a second look, because today I'm showing you exactly what makes a 1970 quarter worth investigating and why one tiny detail could completely change the conversation about its value. Now, let's talk about what makes this quarter especially interesting. The 1970 quarter was produced during a major transition period in U.S. coinage. By this point, the United States Mint had already moved away from the traditional silver composition used in earlier Washington quarters, meaning the 1970 quarter is generally a copper-nickel clad coin rather than a regular circulating silver quarter. That single fact is important because some people see an old quarter and immediately assume that age automatically means silver. It doesn't. But that doesn't mean a 1970 quarter has nothing special hiding inside it. In coin collecting, rarity is not simply about how old something is. It can come from unusual varieties, minting mistakes, condition, and coins that survive decades without being heavily damaged. And that is where this story gets interesting. Imagine a quarter that has spent decades being passed from hand to hand, dropped onto sidewalks, thrown into vending machines, carried in pockets, and forgotten in jars, and somehow survived with remarkable details. That kind of survivor can attract serious attention from collectors. Here is where I want you to become extremely careful. If you find a 1970 Washington quarter, don't just look at the front and decide whether it looks old. Examine the entire coin. Look closely at Washington's portrait, the lettering, the rim, the date, the mint mark, and especially any unusual features that appear to be part of the original minting rather than damage that happened later. A genuine mint error or recognized variety can be far more interesting than an ordinary worn quarter. And remember, damage and rarity are two completely different things. A scratch caused by decades of circulation does not automatically make a coin rare. A strange-looking feature can also be damage caused after the coin left the mint. This is why collectors compare examples carefully and use professional authentication when the potential value is significant. If your quarter has something genuinely unusual, don't clean it, polish it, scrape it, or try to make it look newer. An untouched coin can tell its own story, and aggressive cleaning can permanently damage the surfaces and reduce collector appeal. Now imagine finding one of these coins in a condition that looks almost impossible for its age. Maybe it spent decades hidden away in an untouched collection instead of being dragged through circulation. Maybe the surfaces remain surprisingly sharp, the lettering is strong, and the original mint finish is still visible. This is where the price can go vertical. A normal circulated quarter and an exceptional high-grade example can be completely different worlds in the eyes of collectors. Professional grading can become important when condition is strong, because collectors want an objective assessment of how well a coin survived. The closer a coin gets to true mint state quality, the more attention it can receive, especially when the coin also has a desirable variety or error. That is why you should never judge a potentially valuable quarter only by looking at whether it is shiny or dirty. Some valuable coins look terrible, while some ordinary coins look beautiful. The real question is, what exactly are you looking at? And here's the part that can make people rethink their entire change jar. A quarter does not have to look impressive to be worth investigating. In fact, some of the most exciting discoveries begin with coins that look like absolute trash. Think about a 1970 quarter that has been sitting inside an old container for decades, covered in dirt and surrounded by other forgotten coins. It might look like something nobody wants. But if that coin contains a legitimate rare variety or significant minting error, the dirt is not what determines its value. The underlying rarity does. Collectors are not simply fighting over shiny coins. They are searching for coins with something unusual, something scarce, something that other collectors cannot easily find. And when a rare characteristic meets strong demand, auction prices can move far beyond the coin's original face value. There are documented cases across U.S. coin collecting where seemingly ordinary coins have brought hundreds, thousands, or much more when rarity, condition, provenance, and collector demand all align. That is why turning your loose change into serious cash starts with knowing what you actually have. There is another important point I want you to remember. Don't believe every dramatic claim you hear about a 1970 quarter. The internet is filled with pictures of ordinary coins being described as extremely rare, and some supposed errors are simply damage. The U.S. Mint did not secretly ban ordinary quarters because they were valuable, and there is no need for a mysterious government story to make a coin collectible. The real excitement comes from understanding how American coins were made and identifying legitimate varieties and errors. That is where the research matters. Look at the mint mark. Compare the design with trusted references. Inspect unusual doubling or other suspected minting characteristics. And consider professional authentication if you believe you have something exceptional. And if you ever find a quarter that appears to have an unusual composition, strange color, major strike problem, or other dramatic difference, don't immediately assume it is worth a fortune. Verify it first. A little patience could save you from either throwing away a valuable discovery or believing an ordinary damaged coin is a jackpot. The next coin is a 1985 Washington quarter, and this is exactly the kind of coin most people would never think twice about. You can find one sitting at the bottom of a dusty change jar, buried underneath pennies, nickels, and old receipts, and your first reaction might be, it's only a quarter. But I want you to stop right there. The 1985 Washington quarter is not automatically a rare fortune just because it is old, but certain examples can become much more interesting when you find the right mint mark, an unusual minting characteristic, a recognized variety, or exceptional condition. And remember, this coin has spent decades in American circulation. It could have been carried in pockets, dropped on sidewalks, pushed through vending machines, and handled by countless people. Yet some examples survived remarkably well. That is why today we're digging deeper into this ordinary-looking quarter, because sometimes the ugly, forgotten, beat-up coins are the ones worth examining most carefully. The first thing you need to understand is that the 1985 Washington quarter belongs to an era when these coins were made from copper-nickel-clad composition rather than the traditional 90% silver composition used on earlier Washington quarters. So don't make the mistake of seeing an older-looking quarter and automatically thinking, this must be silver. It isn't that simple. The real excitement comes from the details. Depending on the mint, millions of quarters could have been produced, but production numbers alone don't tell the whole story. Collectors pay attention to coins that have unusual characteristics, scarce varieties, significant mint errors, or unusually high grades. A normal circulated example may be worth very little above face value, while a genuinely exceptional example can attract much more attention. This is why the date alone isn't enough. You have to examine the coin like a collector, not like someone simply checking whether it looks old. Now grab your 1985 quarter and look closely. Start with the date, then examine the mint mark, and compare the coin carefully with reliable reference images. Look at the lettering and design elements for unusual doubling or distortion. Inspect the rim and edge for anything that appears inconsistent with a normal coin. But here's a warning that could save you from making a huge mistake. Not every strange-looking mark is an error. A coin that has been dropped, scratched, squeezed, scraped, or exposed to chemicals can develop bizarre-looking features after it left the U.S. Mint. Those are generally damage, not valuable mint errors. The difference can be extremely important. A genuine minting error happened during production, while post-mint damage happened later. If you think your quarter has something extraordinary, don't clean it and don't try to fix it. An untouched coin is far safer than one that has been polished or chemically altered. Collectors want to see the coin's original surfaces, not a freshly scrubbed piece of metal. And now we come to the condition factor. Imagine two 1985 quarters sitting side by side. One has been dragged through circulation for decades. The details are worn, the surfaces are scratched, and the coin looks like it's been through everything. The other has been protected since the day it was struck, with sharp details and surfaces that still look remarkably fresh. Even if both coins carry the same date and mint mark, their collector appeal can be dramatically different. This is why mint state condition matters. A coin preserved in an exceptionally high grade can become much more desirable than a heavily circulated example. Professional grading can help establish that condition, especially when the potential value is significant. And this is where the price can go vertical, but only when genuine rarity and strong condition come together. Don't assume every shiny 1985 quarter is valuable, and don't assume every dirty one is worthless. The real question is what is underneath the appearance. Now think about where people actually find these coins. They aren't necessarily sitting inside a museum. They can be hiding in old coffee cans, inherited collections, dusty drawers, coin rolls, estate sale boxes, or ordinary change. Some collectors search through thousands of coins hoping to discover something that everyone else overlooked. Imagine a quarter that has been sitting untouched in an old collection for decades. It may look slightly dull, perhaps even dirty, but the surfaces could still preserve important details. On the other hand, a coin that looks bright and shiny may have been cleaned, and cleaning can actually hurt its collector value. That's why you should never judge a coin only by appearance. The ugly, forgotten, beat-up coins deserve attention too. Sometimes a coin everyone else throws back into circulation is the one worth putting under a magnifying glass. And let's talk about money, but let's keep this realistic. A normal 1985 Washington quarter is generally not going to suddenly become worth thousands simply because you found it in your pocket. Claims of enormous value should always be verified against actual auction records and recognized varieties or errors. But the broader coin collecting market has repeatedly shown that genuinely scarce errors and exceptional condition coins can bring prices far beyond face value. When collectors are fighting over a rare example, the price can rise dramatically because only a limited number of comparable coins exist. That is the part that makes coin hunting so addictive. You're not searching for a guaranteed jackpot. You're searching for the possibility that one overlooked detail could separate an ordinary quarter from a collectible one. And when you combine rarity, condition, authenticity, and demand, that's when a coin can move from pocket change into serious collector territory. So before you spend that 1985 Washington quarter, take one final look. Check the mint mark. Inspect the date and lettering. Look for genuine minting anomalies rather than ordinary scratches or damage. Pay attention to condition and never clean a potentially valuable coin. If something looks truly unusual, protect it and have it examined by a reputable coin dealer or professional grading service before believing any huge value claim. Because the lesson of the 1985 quarter is simple. Age alone doesn't create a fortune. Rarity and condition do. That dusty quarter hiding in your change may be completely ordinary, or it may contain a feature you never noticed. The next coin is a 1992 Washington quarter, and this is where I want you to slow down before you make a very common mistake. You see a 1992 quarter in your pocket change, and your brain immediately says, just 25 cents. But what if I told you that the date alone isn't the reason collectors look twice? The real question is what happened to that coin before it reached your hands. Was an ordinary circulation piece that spent years being dragged through pockets and vending machines, or did it survive with an unusual minting characteristic, rare variety, or exceptional condition. A 1992 quarter can look completely ordinary, even ugly and forgotten, yet still deserve a careful inspection. Some coins look like trash because they've been exposed to decades of circulation, while others remain remarkably sharp because they were protected almost from the moment they left the mint. So before you throw that quarter into a change jar, spend it at a store, or ignore it completely, take a closer look, because the smallest detail could be the reason a collector becomes interested. The 1992 Washington quarter also comes from an important period in American coinage, but let's make one thing absolutely clear. Not every 1992 quarter is rare, and not every 1992 quarter is worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. This is where smart coin hunting separates fact from internet hype. The standard 1992 quarter was produced for circulation, and ordinary worn examples generally don't become valuable simply because they are more than 3 decades old. But collectors know that coins can become much more interesting when unusual varieties, legitimate mint errors, or extraordinary preservation enter the picture. The U.S. Mint produces enormous numbers of coins, yet the exact circumstances surrounding an individual coin can make a particular example much scarcer than an ordinary one. That's why collectors don't simply ask, "What year is it?" They ask, "Which mint made it? What variety is it? Does it have a genuine error? What condition is it in? And can that characteristic be authenticated?" Those questions can turn a casual glance into a serious treasure hunt. Now, let's get into what you should actually look for. Take your 1992 quarter and examine the date carefully. Then inspect the mint mark, lettering, Washington's portrait, the rim, and the reverse design. You're looking for something that appears genuinely unusual, not simply a scratch or dent created after the coin entered circulation. This distinction is incredibly important. A coin can spend years bouncing around inside a machine, rubbing against other coins, hitting concrete, or being exposed to chemicals. All of that can create strange marks that might look impressive under a magnifying glass, but have little collector value. A legitimate mint error, however, can be a completely different story because it occurred during the manufacturing process. If you believe your quarter has a major error, don't clean it, don't polish it, and don't try to scrape away dirt. Leave the surfaces alone. An untouched coin gives an expert a much better opportunity to determine what happened to it. Now imagine discovering a 1992 quarter that looks almost too good for its age. The edges are sharp. The lettering is crisp. The design details remain strong. The surfaces show very little evidence of circulation. That is where mint state condition becomes important. Collectors often pay close attention to coins that have survived in unusually high grades, especially when the coin also possesses another desirable characteristic. A coin can be common in heavily circulated condition, but much harder to find in exceptional preservation. Think about how many times a quarter can change hands during 30 years. It can be dropped, scratched, rubbed, bent, or simply worn down. For one to survive untouched in a collection for decades is a completely different story. That's why an old coin doesn't have to be dirty to be valuable. And a dirty coin doesn't automatically have to be worthless. Condition is only one piece of the puzzle, but sometimes it can have a dramatic effect on collector demand. And here's where the hunt becomes exciting. Imagine opening an old box from a family collection and discovering a handful of 1992 quarters that haven't been touched for years. Maybe one looks dull, another looks scratched, one looks almost like it came out of a lake, and then you notice one that looks different from the others. The temptation is to clean it immediately. Don't. Cleaning a potentially collectible coin can damage the original surface and reduce its appeal. Instead, protect it and compare it carefully with trusted references. Look for genuine characteristics that can be traced back to the minting process. This is how serious collectors approach the hobby. They don't automatically believe that every unusual coin is a jackpot. They investigate, they compare, they authenticate. And if the evidence points toward a scarce variety or significant mint error, that's when the conversation about value becomes much more serious. Now let's talk about those big auction values you've probably seen online. You may hear stories of coins selling for hundreds, thousands, or even dramatically more. Those sales can be real, but they don't mean every 1992 quarter is suddenly worth a fortune. Auction prices depend on the exact coin, its variety or error, grade, authenticity, eye appeal, and demand at the time of sale. One exceptional example can bring a price that an ordinary circulated coin could never approach. That's why professional grading and auction records matter. If you think you've discovered something special, don't rely on a random internet post telling you that your coin is worth an unbelievable amount. Have the coin examined by a reputable dealer or professional grading service. A genuine rare coin can attract serious attention from collectors, but an ordinary damaged quarter will not magically become valuable because somebody put a huge number next to its picture. The rarity has to be real. So here's your final warning before we move to the last coin. If you have a 1992 Washington quarter, don't automatically spend it, and don't automatically assume you've discovered a fortune either. Check the mint mark. Study the design. Look for legitimate minting anomalies. Compare the coin with reliable references. Pay attention to preservation. And if something looks truly unusual, keep it untouched and get a professional opinion. The final Washington quarter in today's hunt is the 1983 Washington quarter, and this is one I really want you to pay attention to because it represents exactly why you should never judge a coin by appearance alone. Take a 1983 quarter out of an old chain jar, and it may look absolutely ordinary. It may be scratched, darkened, worn, and covered with years of grime. It may look like something that has been dragged through pockets, dropped on sidewalks, pushed through vending machines, and forgotten for decades. You might even look at it and think, there's no way this could be worth more than 25 cents. But stop right there. The date alone does not make a 1983 quarter rare, but certain examples can become much more desirable when you combine the right mint, a legitimate minting error or variety, and exceptional condition. And that is exactly what we are hunting for. Not every 1983 quarter is a jackpot, but if you learn what separates an ordinary coin from an unusual one, you dramatically increase your chances of recognizing something valuable before it disappears back into circulation. The first thing to understand is the period in which this quarter was produced. The 1983 Washington quarter was part of the copper-nickel-clad era of U.S. coinage, meaning you should not automatically treat it like one of the earlier 90% silver Washington quarters. That distinction matters. A lot of people see an old quarter and immediately think, silver! But the 1983 quarter is not a regular silver quarter simply because it is decades old. So where does the potential excitement come from? It comes from the individual coin. Collectors examine the mint mark, varieties, errors, strike quality, preservation, and overall condition. A heavily circulated example may have very little premium, while an unusually well-preserved or genuinely scarce example can attract much greater attention. This is why serious collectors don't stop at the date. They investigate the entire coin. And sometimes that investigation begins with something as simple as noticing that one quarter looks different from all the others. Now I want you to take your 1983 quarter and inspect it carefully. Start with the date. Then look at the mint mark and compare the coin with reliable references. Examine Washington's portrait, the lettering, the rim, and the reverse design. Look for unusual characteristics that appear to have originated during the minting process. But be extremely careful here, because this is where many people get fooled. A scratch is not automatically an error. A dent is not automatically a variety. A strange color can come from environmental exposure. A damaged rim can be caused by circulation. Coins are tough, but after spending decades in the real world, they can collect all kinds of damage that makes them look unusual. A legitimate mint error is different because the unusual feature was created during manufacturing. If you believe you have discovered something significant, don't polish it, don't scrape it, and don't try to make it look new. Leave the coin untouched. The original surface may contain important evidence that helps determine what happened to it. Now let's talk about condition, because this is where a seemingly ordinary 1983 quarter can become much more interesting. Imagine one quarter that has been in circulation for decades, with worn lettering, scratches across the fields, and flattened design details. Now place it beside another 1983 quarter that was removed from circulation early and stored carefully for decades. The second coin may have sharper details, cleaner surfaces, and much stronger overall preservation. That's where mint state condition can make a major difference. Collectors know that finding a common coin in exceptional condition can sometimes be much harder than finding the same coin in worn condition. This is why you should never judge value by age alone. An old coin that looks terrible isn't automatically valuable, and a newer-looking coin isn't automatically rare. The combination of scarcity and preservation is what matters. When a scarce characteristic meets a high-grade example, collector interest can increase quickly, and that's when the price can go vertical. Think about where this coin could be hiding right now. It could be sitting inside an old coffee can buried beneath dusty change. It could be in a collection that has been untouched for decades. It could be inside a forgotten drawer, an inherited box, or a pile of coins that nobody has examined carefully. Maybe the coin looks so ugly that everyone ignored it. That's exactly why coin hunting can be so exciting. Collectors are searching through the ugly, the forgotten, the beat-up coins because appearance doesn't tell the entire story. Even a coin that came out of a dirty container, or one that looks like it came out of a lake, deserves a careful inspection before you decide what it is worth. But remember, don't confuse dirt with rarity. Dirt can sometimes be removed professionally when appropriate, but amateur cleaning can permanently damage collectible surfaces. If you think the coin could be important, protect it first and investigate before doing anything to it. And now we reach the part everyone wants to hear: money. Could a 1983 Washington quarter be worth hundreds or even thousands? An ordinary circulated example generally isn't going to suddenly become a fortune. But genuine errors, scarce varieties, and exceptional condition examples can bring substantially more than face value. And documented auction results are what you should look at when determining realistic market value. The biggest mistake is believing that every coin with a strange mark is automatically a rare treasure. Serious collectors and expert dealers don't pay huge money because a coin looks weird. They pay when the rarity can be demonstrated. The coin is authentic, and there is real collector demand. That's why authentication matters. If you discover a 1983 quarter with potentially major error or an unusual characteristic that you cannot explain, don't rush to sell it based on a random online estimate. Have it examined by a reputable coin professional. If it turns out to be genuinely scarce, that's when the possibilities become much more exciting. So before you put that 1983 Washington quarter back into circulation, give it one final inspection. Check the mint mark. Study the date and lettering. Examine both sides carefully. Look for genuine minting characteristics rather than ordinary damage.